This is where it's extremely, extremely efficient. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is go in and put it into X-ray mode. Now, I do want to highlight the fact I'm not a motion builder person at all. I only learned motion builder about 2 weeks ago. But this is where it's kind of important to me, because I only learn the stuff I need to know. So I know this is the most efficient way of working inside a motion builder for motion capture data. So I only learn the tools that I need to know to get this job out the door as quick as possible. So in my display mode, I'm going to put it into view. I'm going to come down to my characters options in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm going to tell it that this data has come from 3ds Max. So I grab my 3ds Max biped template, drop it onto any bone, tell it to characterize, and now Motion Builder understands what this is. If I navigate to the right-hand side and go to my characterization tool, visually, this, which I think is a beautiful interface, tells me exactly if my bones are set up correctly. Now, it's just a traffic light system. Green is good, red is bad, amber is kind of a who cares. So the nice thing here is I can see most of the bones I've set up correctly, apart from 2. But the nice thing from my point of view is it's telling me I should have done a better job, but it's still going to work. Okay, so from there, I put it into my biped template, and then I'm going to pull in an FBX file. So all I need to do is go up to my merge options, and I'm going to grab the FBX. So if you sort of turned up early this morning, when you was having your coffee, you would have probably seen that myself and Graham were messing around with this Connect. Graham wasn't doing a funny dance because that's how he starts his mornings. We were recording what he's doing. So let's just reuse that data. I'm going to grab my FBX file, pull it straight in. If I press the button, of course, that always helps. And the way in which we work in Motion Builder is basically the same way we work inside of 3ds Max. Lots of windows appear, gives us lots of information, can scare us, but all we do is just say, yeah, I'll take those defaults because I know they're just going to work for me. Then straight away, you'll see that we've got our FBX data being pulled into the scene. If I scrub through the timeline, pretty much the same timeline you're used to seeing inside of 3ds Max and same workflows, you'll see there's Graham doing his really bad dad kind of dance movement. Now,
Looks good to me.
This audience totally disagrees. It does not look good.
Oh, I don't hear any distractors.
From there, I tell it that this FBX file is character motion. So I tell it to characterize via my templates. I say it's a biped, 2-legged person. And from here, it now understands exactly what it is. I come back into my character controls and say, as a source, I want to use that FBX file. Let's just zoom out a little bit so we can see it a bit clearer on the screen what's going on. But there's a couple of things I want to highlight. First of all, the bone structure between those two, the input and the model, is completely different. Doesn't matter. Hopefully you can all notice the fact there's a scaling issue as well. Again, doesn't matter. It's going to do all that retargeting for me. From here, now I've told it what source to use, press play, it now references that animation. Super quick workflow. The only other thing I need to do now is say I want to use that straight back inside of 3ds Max. So I'm going to bake it down. Again, same workflow you're used to using in Max or inside of Maya, and I'm going to bake it straight onto that skeleton that's underlying, that's brought in from 3ds Max, or it's been brought in from Maya. That's been baked down. I'm going to select that input FBX data. We're going to delete everything out of the scene so there's no kind of smoke and mirrors, and then I'm just going to update it and send it straight back. Motion Builder there has told me I've made a schoolboy error. I should have selected the components, but it doesn't matter because it's just sent everything. It's worked out what I should have done, sent that back, and from there straight away jumps me back into 3ds Max, and I've got my FBX data applied and my animation done. Now that's good. You know, I've used probably 4 or 5 little clicks inside a Motion Builder, got the data applied straight away, and it behaves as I would expect. But this is where the workflow really comes into play. As I said, I'm a 3ds Max guy. I don't know all the features inside a Motion Builder. It's got lots and lots, but I don't know them all. I don't always have time to learn them. So the nice thing about this workflow is I can now use my standard biped tools, my standard keyframing tools inside of 3ds Max, and it will behave as if it's just normal 3ds Max geometry and 3ds Max animation. That's where the workflow is a really nice, tidy workflow. All the time we've got this underlying dynamic link. So that's the Max side of things. Now what we're going to do is kind of step back a little bit and show you how we made that data in the first place. So I'm going to completely wipe my scene. You'll see it breaks that connection because it's a completely new scene. So that connection is now intentionally broke. Before I do that though, let's just close down this PowerPoint. And now we're going to start to use our Connect device. Now, there's a free little bit of software from Brekel, so brekel.com I think is his website. A guy based out in Amsterdam, and he's made this to work directly with your Xbox Connect devices. Two things I'd point out. The one that you get with your Xbox does not come with a separate power supply. I would recommend you get that power supply. If you go to Amazon and just buy a Connect device, it comes with a power supply anyway, if you buy just a standalone device. The other thing I'd recommend is get the stand. You can throw away the stand, but just get it for the tripod head, because then you can attach it to any of your professional tripods. Okay, so Amazon, about 115 sterling, you've got yourself a little motion capture studio.
So, I mean, just these things, I mean, you might have seen some of this already on the web already. These things are kind of, I'll be as polite as possible, these are kind of like their hacks, really. And of course, you know, when you show a bit of really cool technology to the online community, the first thing you want to do is dive into it. So, you know, I think what this proves is that, you know, Microsoft probably had a vision for the Kinect, and it's gone way beyond that already. But I think what this does show is what really one guy can do, who's a little bit clever. And of course, we're now starting to see people feed into this, and of course, you know, starting to use the Kinect for really other purposes other than basically playing on Xbox 360. So, you know, we're not saying this is perfect, but, you know, you might think it is, and that's great. But I think it just goes to show. And I think I could be wrong, but Microsoft actually haven't even released the SDK for the Kinect yet. So people have gone into this without that. So, and I think what's good thing, Microsoft have responded to this and said, well, you know what, maybe we should do the SDK. You know, maybe we should put it out there as well. So that hopefully will be coming fairly soon. So, you know, I think it's really good to see that, you know, people are pushing this technology beyond its initial use.
Okay, so three little areas I just want to highlight in this interface. First of all, bottom left-hand corner, you've got a live stream coming in via just a standard camera, which is all built into your Kinect. The right-hand side is your user recognition system. You'll see that the guy sat down at the front. Unfortunately, everybody's now going to stare at him. But he's been highlighted straight away as a user, even though he's sat down. It will recognise multiple users. So as everybody's still staring at you, would you mind standing up just for a second?
You're going to regret sitting in the front.
You'll see now, he's now tracked as a user. Now, if whoever is that person there, which I think is that gentleman in the pink shirt, would you mind standing up? I think you're being cropped out by the chair in front. But it will recognise multiple users. And this is where it's really, really intelligent. You get separate colour coding to tell you what user is what, basically. Now, at the minute, I'll let you two sit down, thank you. Anybody want to be a volunteer? Anybody at all?
Oh, there's a hand up.
Is there a hand up?
There's a hand up.
Go on.
That's good, because we would have plucked somebody out, really. So I think what's good is this is just the default settings. I mean, Microsoft have already improved the resolution of the camera, and they're already looking at multiple camera input as well. So, you know, if you want to get really clever, if you had 2 or 3 Kinect devices, then you're going to get proper triangulation in there. And once you get into that, then you really are into like proper mocap territory. So if we're doing this already with just this type of simple example, then I think you start to really begin to see the capability.
Okay, so at the minute we're doing this in a really low light level, and let's see if we can get away with doing it. If not, we might need to increase the lighting a little bit. But straight away notice, bottom right hand corner, it says this person is a person. It's being tracked. Now the nice thing is we need to set up the extremities like you would do in a normal motion capture studio to start off with. If you've got an Xbox Kinect at home, you'll know that the way in which you recognise yourself as a user is you stand there and put your arms up as if you're being mugged. So if you could do that for me. Stay like that for a couple of seconds.
This is where it all goes wrong now. And there we go, yay.
And now you're tracked. So now the marker points have all been added. That's how simple the setup procedure is. So if you can drop your down a little bit for me.
So if I walk into does it change if I walk into the space now as well? If I walk in, I'm now across as a separate user, completely different colour, and I'm not interfering with the other guy that's already been calibrated. So that's how you get the multiple person coming in, because obviously if you play the Kinect at home, you've got 2 people side by side playing tennis, whatever.
Now the nice thing that I just want to highlight here, in the top middle window, what you're seeing in this little shareware bit of information is basically point cloud data. So if you want to export out maybe an OBJ file format and use that inside of 3ds Max to work out markers and where people were in the scene, you've got that full flexibility as well. So all the time he's being tracked. And I want you to do just one last thing. Well, I say one last thing, I'm going to get you to do loads of things. But one last thing, just spin around for me. Because if you're familiar with motion capture, you'll know that that kind of movement is really difficult because marker points get occluded. And generally when they get occluded, they freak out. Freak out is a technical term, by the way, if you're taking notes. But they generally get really upset. It's doing a fantastic job at that. I'm going to come back into my motion builder now and show you just how simple this kind of workflow is. Come down to devices. You get a little DLL. If you could just stay where you are, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Sorry. I'm going to leave you there for a bit. I'm going to drop in the device. So Motion Builder now understands that the Breckle device, the DLL, is where we're going to bring in the data from. A couple of little things you need to do. Turn it online, make it live, and then create a Breckle device. And now if you just make a little walk around in a circle or just move forwards, move backwards, that's your motion capture.
So if Jamie, sorry, John, to interrupt. If Jamie had a webcam plugged in as well, USB, it would appear under the video section at the moment because it's not there because there's no textures. And you could drag that into the viewport and it's live, literally live. And it comes in as it can do in the camera foreground or the background or even just a movable pane which you can move around and scale up. You know, and so you can basically film the guy at the same time as well as capturing it from the Connect device as well.
So really what I want to do is highlight here, if you want to record it, you hit the record button, you stand in a T-stance pose like you would do if you're modelling. Motion Builder recognises you then as a character, hit record, press play, all that motion's recorded until you say stop. So the nice thing about this is, if there's a very complex piece of animation that you want to do, whether you're in any of our industries, even if you're design, if you're games, broadcast, if there's a very small motion capture clip or a small sequence that you need to keyframe, then think, well, can I get myself a Connect? Can I do this workflow? I'll do that in a few seconds, or I can spend a few hours doing it inside of the Hero package.
That's all right. I'm just hijacking your demo now.
Thanks. Or you can, rather than keyframing it in the Hero 3ds Max or Maya package, is this a better option? Use that as a base and then stick all my animation layers on top, tweak it and get that finite control. This is where the workflow with suites, with extra applications from Breckle, are extremely, extremely powerful.
So Jamie, could you quit and restart or start a new one? Just quickly, two minutes.
Right.
I need to restart Motion Builder or start a new version.
Okay, cool.
Just start. Let me just fire up another version of Motion Builder. Very quickly. So I've just plugged in the webcam I've got with me, just very quickly, just to show you it. Hopefully when it boots up very quickly, and that'll be it from us. There we go. There we go. Should have read the right camera in.
So just whilst Graham's doing that, I'll shout rather than pushing that away.
Microphone.
This was recently highlighted, I think, in the latest 3D wheel, so if you want more details about that particular workflow with the Breckle device, then the latest issue of 3D wheel kind of goes into that in more detail.
So I've got Motion Builder up now. There's my video. I'm going to just drag it in. Camera, foreground, background, video pane. There it is. If I double click that now, if I just make it online. There we are. Hey, how are you guys doing? So I'll just put it on there, and I can just leave that going, or just ping it there. Oops. So it's completely live, and I can select this now. Actually, no, I want perspective. So Jamie's now changed his keyboard configuration, so I now have to change back to Motion Builder. So I can just move this around wherever I want. I can even just sort of duplicate that as well, maybe. There's 2 feeds, and I can navigate around the viewport and do whatever I want. So that is cool. Now, also, look, that's a webcam. Okay, it's not going to be the finest quality in the world, admittedly, but the SDK for Motion Builder is there. All the live camera input is actually there as well. So, you know, if you've got some really cool programmers in your studio, you could probably hook in a digital SLR with the right HDMI output in there quite easily. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Right, okay, so on that note, you know, I just want to kind of recommend that there's a 3 o'clock session. Max and Maya, Max Breakout 1, Maya's in Breakout 2. We're going to show you 2012, the highlights, things that you basically just generally won't find in kind of the help files, and just show you some little tips and tricks and things to be aware of. So on that note, I want to thank you for your time, giving you a high-level overview of the suites, and feel free to ask us any questions throughout the day. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Before you all get up, is there any questions for Jamie and Graham before they disappear for lunch and things? Any questions? Great. Joshua first.
Just one question really. Hi again. I was just wondering, that software, is it only via Motion Builder? Can it be accessed directly as just with Max?
At the moment, the Breckle device, the one I was using was an old version. I know he has updated it. I believe it's only still with Motion Builder. I haven't seen any DLLs for Max. It's not to say it's not possible, it's just that Motion Builder is the most efficient way of doing it, so obviously that makes sense to go for that package first.
I think most
if you look at the Breckle website, he's also updated it so it handles multiple Connect devices as well, which is quite a nice little feature if you want to do photogrammetry and reconstruct products, characters, environments, you know, that type of workflow. So bear in mind, you know, go to the website, grab the latest version, because the one I had was kind of the old one, but it still works like a dream. And the short answer to your question, predominantly Motion Builder at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, someone's just done a Softimage one for $99, I think, and you know, I'm sure it's only going to be a matter of time before somebody does it directly into Maya or directly into Max, really. But with Motion Builder, you've got the Human IK technology as well. So again, that's based on the middleware offering that we do as well. So if you combine the two together, then yeah, I think you've got a really powerful solution.
Cool, thank you very much. Any other questions? We had someone from over here. No?
Is there any way of using the Kinect for like facial animation?
There's not anything I've seen at the moment, but facial animation would probably be a little bit more difficult because obviously with the Kinect it's based purely on, you know, your body movement. However, you know, the Kinect does recognise the face. You know, you can scan your face in when you use a Kinect device on your 360. I just don't think anybody's really explored it yet. But I'm sure somebody out there is probably beavering away right now on something. And I think this is the reason why there's not an SDK for it. So I think if Microsoft then start supporting that and putting all that kind of API out there, I'm sure someone's going to do it. You know, I think it's only a matter of time. But short answer, not at the moment. But yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised if it does at some point.
Yeah, I'd certainly recommend just a Google search because you'll find lots of ways of people have hacked the Kinect device. There's a hack out there for Mudbox, so you can use your Kinect for modelling if you want to, using hand gesture kind of matrix. What's the one film with Tom Cruise in?
Minority Report.
That's the one, Minority Report, that type of movement motion. So
it's just stupid, but it's brilliant. I mean, it's great, it's fantastic. It is, I mean, it's like, you know, after it's great for 5 minutes, then after 10 minutes you go, God, my arm's aching a bit. But the fact that someone's done it, I think, is wicked. You know, it's that, and that's what pushes tech forward. You know, people doing these really kind of funky and cool stuff, and that's what you want, because someone goes, if we took that and combined it together, then you never know what might happen.
Cheers. Any other questions? One more at the front.
Bearing in mind, this is kind of not, we're not endorsing this, you know, this isn't we're not backing the guy who's done this kind of stuff. We've just downloaded it ourselves and thought it was really cool. So, you know, like I said, there's no Autodesk solution yet. Sorry, there's a question.
Thank you. At the moment, what you've demonstrated is a humanoid, but could you give it your own specific targeted points to track? So, for example, using your hands and your fingers to puppeteer quadrupeds.
Yeah, I think it would be possible, but then you're getting into the kind of marker-based type stuff, which essentially that's what mocap actually is. But again,
would you have to SDK that, or is there actually stuff within the software at the moment where you can specify what markers you're using?
You can directly mocap into Motion Builder with a mocap rig. For the Kinect, Not at the moment, but again, I think with SDK work, I think it would be possible. But you'd have to get the fidelity. You'd have to, obviously, when you're doing hand capturing and everything, it depends how the fidelity is. Obviously, it captures hand movement, but does it go any further? But, you know, I'd probably say SDK work would probably expose that, I think.
I believe the latest Breckle recorder does hand motion as well. I've only ever tried it on a biped. Didn't have a horse in my room, unfortunately. Graham did have a donkey in his room, but I don't think we're allowed to talk about that. But I do think it only works with bipeds. But I do know the latest version, I'm pretty sure, from the Breckle, does finite analysis of fingers and motion as well. And I think the next generation of the Kinects goes to that kind of level of standard.
So it's getting better all the time. Then you come into resolution as well. So, you know. So, I mean, as the resolution gets better, the technology goes forward, you know, and then it'll get, I think it's only a matter of time, I think, really.